It's going to be a very general, non-commercial talk. Sometimes I will talk about technology, about society, about science. And I will not show much of the product because I want to be very generic. And then afterwards, we will give a presentation of the actual company Websays and of the product, or mainly one product that we use in this area. So what you're going to see first is very general, but be patient, and you will see actual details of implementation with real clients towards the end. In fact, that second part of the presentation, it will be done by the director of sales of Websays, Oscar Aguilar, who knows a lot about how do you implement these technologies for real clients. Okay, and please interrupt me if you see there are problems in the presentation or you don't see the screen that you're supposed to see, etc. I hope you can all hear me clearly by now. I'm going to keep going, hoping that you are seeing my screen and that you are hearing me clearly. So today we're talking about social media marketing in the area of artificial intelligence. This is a very broad area. There are many ways in which artificial intelligence is going to impact social media marketing over the next years, from forecasting, pricing, placing, all kinds of things. Today I'm going to be concentrating mainly on content analysis, language analysis, opinion analysis, okay? And that's my main area, and that's the main reason we created Websays. So before that, let's have a very quick historical overview of things. So if you see this drawing here, you think historically the world was divided. On the one hand, you had the people that they would talk, they would complain, they would have opinions about products, about governments, etc. And they talk to each other in a very local way. They could only talk to each other in the bar or at church or in the street, at the school, but it was very local. The only way for this information to go global was through the amplification of information brokers like the medias, NGOs, unions, consumer associations, which if they chose to, they could take some messages and really amplify them, take them to the governments, take them to the legal entities, and take them to the companies. Similarly, in the private world, it was similar. The communication between the people and the companies was mediated or brokered through market research, consultancy agencies, audience studies. They were really the ones at the door between the information. And so there was very little information going from one side to the other, and it was a very biased process. What the internet promises, in a sense, is to change this picture completely, and to have people communicate with each other freely and automatically in real time, talk to governments, talk to politicians, talk to companies, complain, propose ideas, and replace, in a way, the information brokers, replace the medias, which now just listen and amplify, but are, in a way, no longer the brokering mechanism here. Now, that's the promise, and that's kind of what we're talking more and more in the marketing world. But in fact, we are very far from this picture still today. So there are clear examples of where this has changed the world, right? So for example, here I have some pictures of some of the things. On the right, you see a tweet thread of the Arab Spring, the Tunisia independence movement, right? Where you had millions of people changing a government. So you see real action through amplification of people in the social media. At a more local case, we've seen in Italy, the Movimento 5 Stelle, all over the world. For example, in Mexico, we participated with Bronco, who is the first independent governor of Mexico, who won an election without any media marketing, but through social media. The city of Barcelona, with which we work today, they're continuously asking people to communicate with them through social media. So it is clear that in the, at least in the administration, the public, the societal domain, society has taken notice of this and is using these channels in a massive way. Of course, in the commercial world as well, you know, we have reviews about almost every product, every restaurant, every hotel, and we are inundated by reviews of different kinds where people are directly scoring and they're telling the rest of the people and the companies themselves what do they think about a product, what do they think about a service. So it gives the impression that we have huge amounts of data. It's almost like if we had what we call here a mind net, which is it's almost like we were all connected. All our brains are connected through social media, through Twitter, through Facebook, through blogs. We can actually listen to and talk to anybody in the world. We're pushing data nonstop. And in theory, that's very good because business analytics and artificial intelligence, they thrive on data. I mean, once you have a lot of data about a particular problem, you can use artificial intelligence algorithms, business analytics, big data algorithms to really capitalize on that data and get value out of it. And so in theory, we are in a situation now, unprecedented, in which we can now study social media marketing uh, in the same way we used to study, physics experiments where we had millions of data points. And we can optimize campaigns. In theory, we can do a lot of things. In the practice, this is not that easy. And we want to talk about this. Why is it especially hard, and why is it so slow to actually change things? So imagine for a minute that you had this mindnet. You had a server that is collecting in your own company every thought of every person in the world, right? What tools do you have to deal with this amount of data? You could load it in Excel, for example, right? And then you would have an Excel with millions of lines. Each line would be an opinion, a review. And then what do you do with this Excel? There's very little. You cannot take a sum. You cannot chart anything. You have no information. You have a lot of data, but it's almost impossible to deal with this data. And we've seen this. Many of our clients, they download reviews from a review site, put them in Excel, and then they ask somebody to read these comments and try to figure out what's going on, what's good, what's bad. Do we have a crisis? But it's an amazing amount of work, and it's completely manual. And the reason for this is that most of the big data and artificial intelligence has been developed for numerical data or graphical data. Let me give you an example. So numerical data means numbers. If you have, for example, a lot of numbers about sales, you can use analytics and artificial intelligence to guess future forecasts. You can do a lot of analytics with numbers, right? You can analyze what is the best product, what time of the year you want to sell it, just using the analytics of the sales. Visa, for example, can use artificial intelligence to try to guess who is a fraudulent user and who's a good user. Those are numbers, and numbers we're very good at dealing with. Also images, more and more we can deal with images. We can understand if there's an image, there's a face or not, if there's a cat or not. We can use security, logo recognition, more and more things. And the ultimate frontier, the one that is now slowly cracking, but it's only very recently that we can actually analyze, is natural language, human language, opinions written in human language. Why is this important? So if I ask you to rate a hotel from 1 to 5, and you rate 2 or 3 or 4, and I have 1 million ratings, I can take the average, I can look at the distribution, I can do lots of things. If I am looking, for example, click-through rates in Google Analytics, I can chart, I can do all kinds of things. But now if I, instead of having a number from 1 to 5, I actually have the comments, it becomes much, much hard to analyze. So opinions are a new form of raw material. It's clear that it's very valuable, and it's clear that it's slowly changing the world, both in institutions, in politics, but also very much in marketing. But we're just starting to exploit this material, which is the opinions themselves. And it requires very complex analytic tools. And this can be frustrating because you just want to get a quick answer. And in fact, turns out the tools are complex. And even if they're not complex, behind the lines, what they're doing is very complex. So I'll try to give you an overview to educate you in terms of technology before you actually see a commercial demo where we show what we actually do in our product, okay? So overall, the kind of things you need to do, it's obvious. You need to collect data from the web, right? And that includes two parts of the web. On the one hand, you have the traditional web, but it's the kind of thing that you expect to see in a browser, like news and blogs, online media, forums, reviewers, and other sites. This is in a way open web. And on the other side, you have social media, which are like little worlds inside the web. For example, in YouTube, it's a little internet about videos and comments, right? Facebook is a little world about people, friends, comments, etc. Each one of those is different. So in the old days, Google would give you a view of the entire internet, but nowadays you need technology that goes into each one of those and picks up the data that you want, right? So of course you need to do a lot of technology to sort of get that data in, and that's now becoming standard. So there's a number of tools nowadays that allow you to collect information in all of these different places, okay? Now, the other problem is you cannot take all of the data because it would be massive. You only need the data that you care about. And typically, the easiest thing would be, look, I only care about data in my Facebook page. And that's relatively easy, right? Or I only care about data in my Twitter. Okay, that's easy. But it turns out about 80% of what people say about a brand, they're saying it outside of what we call the corporate channels. So for example, if I like Coca-Cola, and I say something about the new Coca-Cola can, 80% of the time, I won't bother telling them in their Facebook page. I won't bother using their corporative hash. I'll just say it, right? It's the same for institutional channels. If you think of, for example, the city of Barcelona, where we work with closely, most people, when they talk about the city or they complain about issues or they're happy about things, they don't actually use the official Barcelona hash or the official Barcelona Facebook channel. They just use public channels all over the place. And so you need to be able to find the data, clean it up, and collect only the data that you're interested in. And then once you have this data, you have to start analyzing it. So let me give you examples of why analyzing data is hard. So we call it, it's nasty data because it's data that is very hard to put into a database. And this is just, you don't need to understand this fully to use our tools, but it's a good opportunity to give you a sense of why computers have a hard time understanding language and why is it so important that you choose the right software, because anybody can say, you know, we take data and we analyze it. But unless this company realizes how hard it is to analyze language, their results will be poor. Poor in the sense that they will be irrelevant, they will be wrongly labeled, and they will not be useful to derive any analytics. So these are some examples of why language is hard, and intuitively we all know about this. So first problem computers have is and that's an artificial intelligence problem, is how do you convert characters into words? Let me give you an example. I can say the word birds. Those are just 5 characters, B-I-R-D-S, and that's the plural of bird. So we automatically know as humans that that represents a bird, a concept of a bird. And if I say the word fly, this is the sentence I have here in red, the first sentence, which actually comes from a book. Those who know, have kids may have read it, which is called Winnie the Pooh. It's just a funny sentence that says, birds can fly, but flies can't bird. And the fun part of this sentence is that fly, the word fly, is a noun that can work as a noun, but also as a verb. But the word bird cannot work as a verb. And so if you see the word birds plural, you know, as a human, exactly what we're talking about. But the computer does not know. And if you see a word like flies, as a human, you need the context to figure out what it means. And again, computers don't know. So traditional algorithms, which they just count words, they would fail completely in sort of understanding the most basic level of a sentence, which is just the words, right? And that's why artificial intelligence comes into place, because you need to use algorithms that are extremely complicated, or not complicated, but complex, to deal with this complexity. In analytics with data, you don't have that with numerical data, because if you see the number 7, well, that's the number 7. There's no ambiguity. But if you see the word bird, there's implicit ambiguity there. And there's many levels of ambiguity. I won't go through all of them here, but just to give you a very, very graphical example that I use when I teach these things, think of the sentence, for example, the one at the bottom here that says, Indians eat food with chili. I think as humans, we automatically understand that Indians eat food with chili means that they put chili in the food. So they add chili to the food. And so it's a modifier of the food. But if I say Indians eat food with their fingers, your brain makes a cognitive change automatically and then assumes that the modifier is not about what's being eaten. They don't think that we're actually eating fingers. It automatically switches to the mode and says, okay, we're eating with fingers. This kind of complex deduction is automatic in our brains. We don't even notice it, but it's necessary to understand sentences. And so that's why, natural language processing and semantics matter a lot. These technologies that are just starting today to be of commercial use make a tremendous difference when you start analyzing human text. Okay, I won't go deeper into this. If you're interested, drop me an email. There's very exciting books that explain these things, and there's lots of tutorials about it. It's more a scientific detour, really, and we don't need to know more about this. I just wanted to give you an example of why it is this hard behind the lines. So, in fact, a lot of what computers can do today is to take a sentence like this complex sentence here. Earlier this month, MCI sued AT&T in federal district court claiming that AT&T's ads are false. Or it could be an opinion about a product or a review, a hotel review, for example. And we could take it apart and we can actually figure out what are the individual components of this sentence. And this now is becoming more and more accurate, so we can do it on the fly in real time, really fast, in a fairly accurate manner. We will make mistakes, of course, but it's getting to the point where we can use it effectively. And once we do that, we can also take the sentence apart and try to really understand it. And this is just an internal representation in terms of an artificial intelligence algorithm that is showing you how this sentence is breaking up into a part. At the end of it, what matters is that the computer has understood that the only important part of this sentence is 3 words: MCI sued AT&T, and that means there is a negative verb, a negative impact on AT&T happening. Now, all of this, it's happening in a fairly automated way. So at the end of the process, what you see basically is a label on the sentence. And then when you have many labels, you can start doing very, very interesting things. This technology was in university labs only a few years ago, and it's only recently in the last 5 years that commercial applications have started to use this in a practical sense. And that basically allows you to do analytics on text at an unprecedented level. Let me give you, well, for those that are interested, this is the kind of things that the algorithms need to deal with. I won't go into the details here, but this is a pipeline that we use to process data and to give it to the client in a transformed way, so they can actually look at simple things, which you will see in a minute. Like if you just want to know how many people complain about a particular product, or how many people are happy about the new design change. All of these questions that you ask yourself, in order to get a number, in order to process all of the data into a final number, you need to do this kind of deep analytics, okay? The good news is that we've managed now to wrap it sufficiently so that you don't actually need to know what's happening behind the lines, and you can just get the answers at the end, okay? I will give you a few examples, but just to summarize very briefly, computers cannot understand human language today. I mean, they're still very far from what an analyst can do by reading sentences, okay? But they can already answer some specific question types. And we have all tried this on Siri and on Google, Android. You can ask questions and get answers from very specific questions. And more importantly, we can tag sentences. And that's what I'm going to show you why it matters for social analytics and for institutional opinion analysis as well. So I'll give you some examples of tagging that impacts social analytics. We're also very good more and more at classifying sentences into different aspects and extracting summaries. So for the rest of this talk, I'm going to give you just examples of things that we can do with text using artificial intelligence, and how this can impact social media and sentiment analysis in general. Okay? Let me switch over here. All right. So the first example, I'm going to run you a short video where you're going to see how we turn hotel reviews in several languages, into classifications. This is a video that is public on YouTube. Hopefully I can load it up here now. Okay. Can you confirm that you are seeing now lots of pictures and text? Because I'm switching screens.
It's on the Websays dashboard.
Very good. So this is a dashboard. You will see later the demo what the dashboard actually does and how it works. At this point, the only thing that matters is that we are collecting in real time comments about and reviews in real time about hotels, booking.com, tripadvisor.com, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Now, this amount of text, it's not very useful. I mean, you can read one by one, but how can you do analytics? How can you drive campaigns automatically out of this? How can you optimize for particular KPIs? It seems impossible, right? So the first thing you need to do is to convert this text into realistic numbers that you can use. And that's what I'm going to show you here. So in this particular example, this is the same dashboard now, but you can see, for example, this is a review about a hotel, and you see a person that says, maybe a bit outdated. Please put water cooker in room so we can make a free coffee in the morning. This sentence here, we are able to actually turn it, break it down into the main components, and what you see here is about 150 categories of things that they thought would be critical for their operations. And so, for example, we can go to maintenance and installations, and we can see they care about air conditioning, bath elements, locking of doors, electricity plugs, etc., etc. If I go into pricing, for example, they care about the price of breakfast, laundry, minibar. So we are categorizing into categories. And now every time we see the computer receives a sentence like this, it converts it automatically to two tags: equipment fittings, product all deco. For example, this next one, it says our breakfast was lower price, and the artificial intelligence turns this sentence into one code, which is price of breakfast. So now we've reduced all of this text into only 150 categories at two different levels. So now I can take these hundreds of thousands of reviews that we get every month, and I would turn them into a report. Let me open it up, which looks like something like this. I can say, look, for your hotels in America, the main problems that you had this month are breakfast, check-in, checkout, cleanliness, etc. And I can now run traditional statistics to decide, okay, we have a problem, or we are increasing a number, or we're decreasing a number. In fact, here what you see in green is a decrease in complaints. So what you can see is that both price and product have registered a significant decrease in complaints for this particular period of time. So think about it. You've converted millions of comments into a chart that you can take to a meeting and say, we are improving opinion about price. And the reason is this automatic report, which is being computed every night in real time, can tell me precisely this is the case. It's not just because I have a sense from reading a few that that's the case. It's methodologically correct and neutral. And so suddenly we start looking at data, statistics in terms of marketing, in terms of customer care, in terms of operations, that we had never seen before, and that allow you to do very interesting ways of improving your services or your campaigns. Okay, I'll take questions later. I'm talking a lot. I hope some of this resonates with some of your problems because I'm being very generic. Hopefully you will find points of contact with your interest, and we can discuss them in a minute. Let me show you how this works in real time, just so you get a sense of how complex and how accurate these models are. So what you see here is somebody typing in real time, and at the bottom you see the category that the computer believes, the artificial intelligence makes the categorization. So as I change from one noun to another, I put a verb, the computer has to make a decision whether there is a problem, and if there's a problem, give it a particular category. This may be going too fast for you to follow, I don't know. What I am showing is a video in which you're typing, and in real time, as you type, we find the right category. So location was great is perceived as a congratulation message, but location was far from the center. It's perceived as a problem of product, and it's other because there's no specific category for this problem. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that artificial intelligence allows us to do. For the first time in history, we can turn natural language into specific categories. And from there, we can do a lot of analytics, which is what you will see following up in the next part of the talk. All right, so let me switch out of this and go back to the presentation. So I'll give you just two more snapshots of things that we are doing with this artificial intelligence. In a way, we're showing you the most spectacular applications, which are sometimes customized for our clients. But you will see later that a lot of this is actually given off the shelf in a product, which is just on the cloud as software as a service. So this is another example of what we can do. We can take in conversation. This is actually a city, the city of it's a borough in London, a neighborhood in London. And in real time, we are classifying every opinion as being one of about 100 different categories. In this case, we can decide whether they're talking about airplanes, bikes, boats, that's transportation, but also things like religion or politics, but also things like parking, social services, traffic, gardening, universities. And so because we can do this fairly accurate in real time, it means that we have a picture of, in a way, the conversation DNA of a city. And this allows us to make now new analytics, which are unprecedented before. In particular here, what you're seeing, those two bars at the top, they are showing two views of the data. On the one hand, we can listen to the major and the city major and see what they are saying. That's the corporate message. If you were a brand, that would be what you are saying in your blog, in your Facebook, in your Twitter. That's what you're trying to tell people that you're about. On the other hand, we can listen to how people respond. What are they talking about when they talk about you? And take another snapshot. And this particular case is very telling because you can see that the city council is trying to push conversation on sports. And that's why the number one topic they have is sports in dark blue there. But in fact, what people are talking about in this particular period of time is security. And that's the period, the green box on the right. So even though the city is trying to talk about sports, what people are talking about mostly is security. In the old days, we wouldn't know that. We would just do the best we can. We will launch our campaign and hope for the best. In the new era, we can use artificial intelligence to monitor in real-time conversation and measure it, evaluate it, and even react and make judgments. And that's something that is very exciting to us. It opens new possibilities. This is another example where we're actually looking at security issues, so we can detect crisis in real time. And what you see here is a statistical analysis of the number of events, crisis events in a typical city. This is the city of Barcelona, for every hour of the day. So you see, obviously, at 2 a.m., there's a lot less events of crisis than there is at 8 p.m. So because we can develop statistical models based on opinions, we can now fire alarms if we see the threshold going above a particular level. So in this case, we can decide to alert the city if there is a particular volume that is above a particular threshold for that time of the day. We've done a lot of things on content generation, because once you can understand comments, you can actually generate specific content. For example, what you see here during the elections in Spain, and we did this also for Italy, we can find the politician that has been most controversial during the day. In a way, it's been most insulted, or there's been more jokes about him. And in real time, we can measure this. We can measure how controversial a politician is, or it could be also a brand or a program, a TV program, anything. And then in real time, display these as content in web pages. So we've done a fair amount of work in this area. Even devices, this is for a city council where they use a light bulb. What you see here, this Alevios is a special light bulb that can turn red or green depending on what signal you send through the computer. And so they connected this to our Websays analytics to have a real-time light that would go red if people were saying bad things, and go green if people were saying good things about a particular program. So you can see these ideas can expand beyond pure social media analytics into real-world content creation and even experience creation. Okay. All right, so I think I'm going to stop there in terms of the more generics presentation. What I was trying to get the message across is that, Our opinions have become a new form of material that we can manipulate and we can do things with. And this is changing the world, both in the economics, marketing, but also in institutions, politics, security, all over the range. And we can do this only through artificial intelligence because it's the only way to map human language into meaningful signals that we can apply actions on afterwards. So I hope at least I made that clear in this very short presentation, and I gave you ideas of why we're doing this kind of thing. So maybe at this point we should take some questions general to the talk before we dive into the actual Websays.
Hugo, we prefer to do the Oscar one and then open wall for the questions.
Okay, very good. So we're going to do now a short presentation of the products offered by Websays and the demo itself. So give me 2 minutes to switch screens, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Oscar.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So I'm going to go shortly to speak about what you can do in this area of applying artificial intelligence into social media conversations or other types of texts. If you see here, this is kind of a complex diagram, but I hope you have an idea of what we can do at Websays, what we can track as an input for our system, for our artificial intelligence gathering texts and converting them into insights. What we can gather is basically social conversations, as you can see, mainly all social networks through their APIs and sometimes using scrapers. Then online opinions like blogs, RSS feeds, forums, digital news, also video comments that are in text. We are working also in adding transcriptions of videos so that those videos can be converted to text, and then we can analyze that text, obviously. And then, for instance, in terms of reviews, we can also track and analyze all opinions, all the reviews about both apps and hotels. When I say apps, I mean the reviews for a mobile app in Google Play or Apple Store. And when I say hotel reviews or restaurants, I'm talking about basically TripAdvisor, Booking.com, and so on. Yeah. Besides that, we can also use our our processor for text for specific surveys or any data set that you or your customer might have. And then, as you can see here, we treat these as raw data, and this raw data has to go through these processes that Hugo explained so that we can come up with clean data. Yeah. Once we have the data clean, thanks to this process, this team of human analysts go through some samples of the concept of the comments, and they just, what they do is basically manually assign the insights that are correct to a specific text. That means sentiment, for instance, and then we have this machine learning platform that learns from those validations manually done, yeah, so that the new automations can be generating new value to this process, and then eventually in a specific time we could improve the way this is automatically done. So the idea is that we can track millions of mentions in real time, and then the machine would label it correctly. When I say label, let me go to the real data. This is our dashboard. When I say label, I say labeling the sentiment, like you can see here, or the language, as you can see, or even who is the author that's talking about it. Yeah, some of these data, as you can see, are coming from the APIs of those social networks, but some of those are something that require some human-assisted technology, yeah, like the one we use. So this is in real time, everything that's being said, as you can see, in the various social networks. And it is social, it is in real time, because you can see here we have just 5 new clippings that arrived while we talked. So yeah, these are the 5 new mentions that we received. Yeah. Then once we have this in place, what we can do is obviously generate reports based on those insights. Some of those are based on this AI influenced data, but some of them are just not qualitative but quantitative data, like the amount of tweets or retweets, or the amount of posts or comments on Facebook, etc. Yeah, but if we go to the AI, focusing again on the AI part, you can see here we have several topics. Those topics can be defined manually. That means I can track down, in this case I am tracking down a brand of shoes called Camper, and the client can tell us, hey, you know, I want to track down this or this campaign because I want to track the what's the impact of this campaign. But there are also some topics that are much more complicated. For instance, complaints. Yeah, if you want to know how many complaints you might have, so that you want to assign them maybe automatically to a customer service representative, so that they can answer right away to any complaint using the same social channel they are complaining in, they can do that now. And they can do that thanks to this same process, the same process we use for identifying what mentions are relevant to a brand are the same ones that we use to actually track down specific type of conversation based on text. Yeah. And then on top of that, we can have insights gathered, like, for instance, and this is more quantitative again, but we can have like the top 10 influencers based on the number of followers, or the top 10 liked on Facebook, etc. Yeah. So many insights that we can provide in a mixture of both artificial intelligence custom ones and just quantitative basic ones. Yeah. We can track down also the reach, as you can see here, and we can even go further and compare different brands between themselves. Like in this case, we're comparing Camper and Desigual. Yeah, and you can see all the insights that we can track down. Yeah, in an easy way to consume and to compare, and then to generate reports so that you can send to your customer or you can analyze for yourself. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. The only now it's time to really accept any questions that you might have, both for me and Hugo.
Yes, I will unmute.
Εντάξει, αλήθεια είναι αυτά εγώ τα είχα κάνει πολύ παλιά. Σπί και τέτοια, αλλά αυτό το πραγματάκι.
Okay, we have unmuted all. If we have questions, please go ahead.
Εντάξει, εγώ είχα ολόκληρη κάρτα. Τώρα αυτό το δικό σου είναι πολύ πιο μοντέρνο.
I have a question actually.
Θα πάρεις ένα μηχάνημα με και θα τα κάνει.
Go ahead.
Entonces, espero su llamada, ¿ya? Hasta luego.
We have sorry, we have questions.